Hi everyone, Plastic EP here. Gives me great pleasure. Everyone around the world is tuned in right now to see and hear rock and roll royalty. Yes, she is. Ann Moses, how are you today, Ann?
Hi, Daniel. I'm doing
That's
well.
it.
How about you?
I'm great. You can call me Plastic.
Okay, plastic. I like it.
That's it.
How about
All my friends.
EP?
That's it. All my friends call me just Plastic. And you know the plastic comes from the 45 single from the 60s that used to be made of vinyl, but it's actually made of plastic. Just so you know. All right.
That's
Now,
awesome.
it's not about me, it's about you. You have interviewed and met people that other people can only dream about, and young girls growing up in America in the 60s and 70s must have idolized you because you had access to some of the biggest pop stars in the world. And in those days, there was no internet. And you had to run and chase these people, meet them, chase them on the phone, travel all over the place. You even went on tour with Paul Revere and the Raiders.
Yeah.
You were there when the Monkees started. And some of the people are Elvis, Paul Revere and the Raiders, the Osmonds, David Cassidy.
Yep.
It's like a royalty list of idols. Without you, and where would they be? Now,
Who knows?
who knows exactly? Now, look,
We
we're
were
going to
their
start now.
conduit for communication. That's for sure.
Well, let me tell you, Ann, the Monkees are my favorite group, and today we're zoning in on the Monkees. Now, look at this, and tell me, as I show you some photos, tell me something about the photos and who took the photo. Here we go.
Okay.
Photo one.
That was at my desk at Tiger Beat at 1800 North Highland in Hollywood. And it's probably about 6 months after I had gone to work there. It was in January of 66, I went to work there. And of course, I had my own desk, as you can see, and my pencils and my famous Rolodex is right there. I wish I still had that. Just because, I mean, there were phone numbers and addresses that didn't appear in the address book that we sent out to fans. So, and it was taken by the staff photographer, which in the early first like 2 years was Bob Custer. And he's the one who went on the vacation to the Bahamas with Davey. And then he went home to England with Davey. I think it was when they had their first break. It might have been the second year, I'm not sure. But anyway, so that's who took the picture.
Photo two.
My mom made the dress, of course.
Here we go. Photo two with Peter Talk and you doing an interview. Who took that photo?
It was also Bob Custer. He even appears in one group photo of the whole cast, and James Frawley is there in the picture, and Bob's down at the bottom. So he was out. Typically, when I'd go out to the set, he would too. So he'd get all the pictures, a few pictures of me with the guys, but predominantly he was taking advantage of just being on the set and getting all the pictures he could, because we needed a lot of them.
Here's the next one.
Yeah, that one's out at Columbia Ranch while they're filming Head. I don't think it had a title at that point in time. And by that time, I was really good friends with Peter. Mickey, I was never close to friendship-wise, but he was always, you know, cooperative and you know, just happy to do whatever I asked them, whether it was to sign their autographs so they could be reproduced on their pinups, or whether I wanted them to fill out a questionnaire by hand so everybody could see their handwriting and they knew that it came from them when it was in their handwriting. You know, there was no question. And so we were out in at Columbia Ranch, but that was the auspicious day after like 2 years of Mike Nesmith just putting me through the ringer to try and get things from him. And he finally, on that day, he asked me out to lunch. We went to, I think, the Yankee Peddler, which was the restaurant that was really close to Columbia Ranch. And he kind of said, you know, I asked him, I said, why have you been giving me such a hard time? And as it turns out, his explanation was he wanted me to do more hardcore music stories. And, you know, at the time I didn't sit there and say, but that, you know, that's not that's not my audience. They, you know, as I found out, you know, 50 years later, there were a lot of young boys buying the magazine. But at the time, we really we felt it was predominantly young girls. And so I said, Michael, you know, I'm just doing my job. And he said, well, you know, I just think you shouldn't have asked me those stupid teeny bopper questions. And, you know, I'm serious and this and that. But anyway, after all that time, it was like, okay, we got this settled. And but to this day, I still haven't had a reunion with him, because the 2 times they came close by my house here in Arizona, he just, you know, he wouldn't talk to me. In fact, I have a great picture of me hugging Coco, because I just wasn't aware that she had been singing with the Monkees. And I had flown up early on to their home in Los Gatos and spent the whole day with her and took fashion pictures, and, you know, it was just awesome. But we just had a wonderful time together. So like seeing her, it was like, oh my gosh. And I mean, I got the best hug from Coco, and I mean, she remembered me, which, I mean, come on, think of the number of people these celebrities have met between 1966 and today. And yet it was like, oh my gosh, you know, she was so excited. And right while we're hugging each other, I wasn't aware of it. Michael is hightailing it out of the Mesa Arts Center. He's done for the night, so I didn't get to talk to him that time. And then the next time, I was hoping to get to talk to him, but that happened to be the night that Peter left the show. It had just been Mickey and Peter, and Peter had to go home for a family emergency. And so Michael, you know, flew in from Northern California, and they rehearsed all afternoon, and he hadn't been appearing on that tour. And the show was just, you know, fabulous. But as a result, both Mickey and Mike were they were focused on putting on a great show, and they did. But that was the time I did interview Christian Nesmith, which was so cool. I mean, literally, I knew him when he was 2 years old, and it was so neat to talk to him and have him tell me so much information about Phyllis, because I became wonderful friends with Phyllis when Michael would say, interview Phyllis, she'll tell you, you know, don't bother me. And it was like, okay. And we ended up enjoying our conversations, and she gave us great stories. And so to hear about what happened to her after the Monkee days it really was fantastic.
Next photo, and I'll tell you where Ann Moses is. Here we go. Now, if everyone looks to the left, and the guy's doing Davey's makeup, and behind Peter, you'll see Ann Moses sitting in the corner, and she's got her pad. I've got my mouse. I don't know if that comes up or not. Maybe it doesn't. But
you can see my reporter's notebook, and that was very early, because again, my hair's like in a flip. It wasn't super long yet, because when I started there, I was still finishing up my last semester of my second year of college, and I was an intern working 20 hours a week. So I would go and do these things, but that's when I started letting my hair grow out from my college hairdo.
And I also got to ask you, they said they used to go and get their makeup done at like 6 a.m. in the morning. Is that a shot like at 6 a.m. in the morning?
Oh, no. They would be called different times. They might start the day with a scene with just one of them or two of them or whatever it was. And they weren't necessarily shot in sequence. And so in the middle of the day, I mean, that makeup man, I kind of got to know him. He was super nice. And he would need to do touch-ups during the day, especially if they were doing physical things. Because they might do an ad-lib scene where they're being crazy and bumping into one another. You never could tell what would be going on. So if they had to reshoot that scene or the following scene, they had to be touched up. And sometimes, they all didn't report first thing in the morning. It was
who took that photo?
As far as I know, it was Bob Custer.
Okay, now I'm going to show you, to me, the most iconic photo that could be made into everybody's, Landrum poster. I may actually get this blown up and put it in my study here, because this deserves pride and place in my house. Have a look at this one. I love that. Tell me the story behind that and who took that photo.
That would not be Bob Custer. So it was, I can't remember if it was out at Columbia Ranch. And, I have a feeling it was. That's where they filmed their outdoor scenes. And so I'm pretty sure that's where it was. And, I wish I had taken more, but that one's a keeper.
But I got to explain, as a young woman, right, being there when the Monkees started, to me, that is like, you just don't understand the importance of that you were there from the start. It's not like you caught on while they took off. You were there before they took off, because I know you were on the first promotion that was called The Last Train to Clarksville. And here's a photo of you on the train on the way back. Let's show everyone and tell us the story about the promo. Here we go.
Okay.
Look at that with Bobby, with Tommy and Mickey.
Yes.
Tommy
the promotion was a radio station promotion, and it was to introduce the Monkees to this select group. And of course, the kids that had sent in entries and were chosen to go on the train, the fans, they had never heard of the Monkees. So it was really a way, I think the radio station, KHJ, really wanted to promote the opening of the Monkees, and it was a combined promotion. But there was and it was a Union Pacific train that went from Union Pacific, which is the historic, in downtown Los Angeles, the terminal is just beautiful. And the train left from there, went down to near San Diego, and they had renamed Del Mar for that day as Clarksville. And we rode down on the train, and we, at this point, I didn't know what to expect. They hadn't sent a promo picture or anything else at this point. And so then they move us from the train, and then they had a small little like stadium like seating, just a real small little place for us to sit, bleachers. If I don't know, is that an Australian word? The bleachers in a gym, for example. I don't know. Anyway, so we get down there, and shortly after we get there, these helicopters start flying over, and then they land, and the Monkees jump out. I think they were each in their own helicopter. I can't recall. But I mean, seeing them in those red shirts with the double-breasted buttons and seeing their faces, and then they hop on stage and start playing. And I mean, this was even before the legitimate press were calling them, you know, a manufactured band and all this. I mean, their show was great. Just a couple of songs, but I mean, everybody was just going crazy because they hadn't seen anything like this. And then they came off the stage. They went back with us on the train, and the last car in the caboose, they did a little impromptu concert, and it was whoever could crowd in. And I mean, it was unbelievable. Here, you know, here you were, you could be 10 feet away from them in the caboose, and they were playing their music. And then after they played music, they went through the cars and from one to the next, greeting all the fans who were, you know, they were just, you know, they were so, at that point in time, you know, they weren't the megastars they would become. And so they just interacted with every fan on the train. And then they made it to the press car, which is where that picture was taken. And I got to meet everybody but Davey on that trip. So it was, you know, it was, and then the next night their TV show aired on national television, and it was just like, oh, here we go.
And you were there. Now I'm going to show you something. This is one of my pride possessions. Took me 38 years to get this original 1967 poster that I had since I was 8 years old, signed by all four. Here we go. That's me with that poster signed to me from everyone, which is pride and place in my house. And I can't tell you what that means to me, but I know you got something there. Yeah, something very special. Now I know you got something there in a frame you want to show us.
Oh yeah, this is my only autographed pictures from the Monkees. Let's get it so it's not. Let me get it. There we go. Whoa, how about that?
Exactly, I can see it perfect. If you just want to read the inscription, that's great. Look at that. Yep, right there, right there.
Yep.
Don't move. Everybody in the world wants to see it.
That way you can read it.
Yeah, you can tell us the inscription.
Well, Peter, Mike and Mickey just signed it. Peter says, for Annie, after all these years, with love forever, Peter Tork.
Yep.
And Davey says, oh, come on. There we go.
Hold it
Cross
down.
my heart and hope to -- love David.
Fantastic. Now, Anne, I've got to ask you, Davey Jones was a neighbour of yours.
Oh, when I first moved to Hollywood.
Yeah.
I moved up there in December '66, and which I talk about in the book, why I decided to move from Anaheim and have my own place in Hollywood. And one morning, literally, I was going out to my car because there were just carports in mine, and then his building was kitty corner across the street from me. And Davey's coming out and he says, "Hi, neighbor." You know, and this was a while, you know, we had been seeing, you know, going out to the sets in September. And it was like, oh my gosh. And then, you know, we talked about it later when I saw him and the next time I went out to the set, but it was like, this is pretty cool. And then of course he moved to his big, beautiful house in the Hollywood Hills. And then we went up there and photographed he and the baby and, you know, the dogs and all his inside the house, you know, our famous at home with stories.
Tell me, Anne, isn't there a photo of you where you're sitting on the back of his bike on the Columbia Ranch side?
Oh, absolutely. That was so
Ah.
early. That was really early. But I mean, what fun. It's on one of those, what do they call
Dragster
them? Banana
bikes.
bikes
We
or
call it,
banana
yeah,
seats?
banana bike, banana seat. In
Yes.
Australia, we call them Dragstar bikes. That's what they're called.
And you can see Davey and I are like the same height. So it's like, that was so fun. And I don't think I realized at the time they were taking pictures. So, you know, when I got back to the office and I saw that, it was like, this is so fun. So somebody captured it.
That's fantastic. Now we've got into the Monkees. They've started off. Now, you've followed their career and been with them all the way through. If we have to talk about the Monkees, tell me things that I don't know and people don't know about the Monkees in the time that you've known them. Like something happened to you in the studio. Well, I'll give you an example.
Okay.
He came from England, and there's a photo of you where Peter Talker's got you. He's got his hands over your neck, which is behind me. And next to him is the guy from the Yardbirds.
Right. Right. Which I keep
Jimmy Page.
Jimmy Page. I love that picture. At that point in time, I had started writing for the New Musical Express in the UK. They would like to buy articles, and then at one point, they asked me to do a weekly column because it was a weekly music newspaper, if you're not familiar with it. And so I did my America Calling column. So then whenever any of the British groups would come to town, they would contact me because they wanted me to write about their whatever they were doing in Hollywood, whether it was a concert, TV shows, you know, and they wanted that news to get back that they were big and popular in the USA because that just upped their career. So I had gone, I think the Yardbirds were staying at the Chateau Marmont, and I went there and did an interview. And Jimmy Page said to me, "Do you know the Monkees?" And I said, "Well, yes, I do." And he said, "Can you get me on their set?" So here is Jimmy Page of the Yardbirds, and he's asking me if I can do him this favor. Well, I did. You know, I called Marilyn Schlossberg, who was my connection, and she said, of course. And then in the back of the picture, you can see record executives. It's like they weren't going to miss out on this. So here's, you know, Jimmy Page's, you know, record executives. And, you know, it was just so much fun. But the Monkees were as thrilled as Jimmy Page because they were a big deal to him and vice versa. You know, they knew what kind of a musician he was. They loved the Yardbirds music. And so it was, the same thing happened when I took Dave Clark out to their show. Of course, Dave Clark was such a businessman underneath all his, you know, performing talents that he was analyzing and, you know, I'm sure his mind was spinning at what he was watching, you know, how they had started and then just become, you know, worldwide sensations. So it was totally fun.
I got to say, with the Monkees, I mean, to me, I was too young for the Beatles. So here's 1966. The TV show starts in September the 9th in America, but being in Australia, it didn't happen until 1967 because we were always behind the 8 ball. There wasn't the internet. So we were always 6 months behind. So the perfect example is, and I know this, when Peter Talk was going to leave the group, the others hinted to you that something was going on. And then I read your story that Peter was leaving the group. I think it was for the British magazine or whoever it was. I read that too.
Yeah, that was for the New Musical Express.
Exactly. But what I'm trying to say is here in Australia, Peter did the movie Head. Then he did the 33 and a third special, and
Yes.
then he was gone. Right?
Mhm. Yes.
But in Australia, we didn't know that he'd left. Like, in other words, here's my band, the greatest one in the world, the one I grew up with, and instantly, bang, they've gone.
Oh.
And we didn't get your story, so no one knew. So it's like,
I know.
you've been with them like for 2 years, and they've gone, you know, like, and it was like a shock. I didn't even know where my favorite group went.
Well, and I felt it in a similar way because, you know, it's not like their popularity had diminished any. I mean, they were at the height of their popularity, and then it started to fall apart. And, you know, and I did not know all the behind the scenes things going on, like the conflicts with the music and who got to sing what, and all those things that were going on. I really wasn't aware of, even though I had, you know, been to some of their recording sessions and clapped on Daydream Believer.
Yeah.
I clapped on Daydream Believer, but I didn't realize the behind the scenes, and they didn't really share that with me, you know. And so I was pretty much as shocked as anybody else that they were breaking up, and disappointed. It was
I got to explain something to you, and why I did that for. I had to grab something. Here I am, 11 years old. It's 1969. I get this album as a present. I want to show you now. It's psychedelic era. As a present, this came out Australia made, and I'm wondering, 9 years old, where's the Monkees? Not on the front, not on the back, right? There's no picture of the Monkees, like their greatest hits. And it's a birthday present, 11 years old. And then 5 years later, I find out the real story, and I bet you haven't even seen this. Here's the album, how it came out originally, with the four of them. Have you ever seen that before?
I haven't. And do you know I'm familiar with those drawings? Because we had those drawings commissioned for Tiger Beat, and we sold them for $1 each. You know, if you wanted that drawing of Peter, you sent us $1 plus 25 cents rush handling. And you got that picture by that artist. He did those for Tiger Beat, and I thought they were, you know, wonderful artwork at the time. But I had no idea that that's what happened with those albums.
Yeah, but I'll explain. I'll explain what happened. Okay, Peter's left the group. This album is legitimate. Somebody on the net wrote this is fake. This is not fake. This came out, and it's got the code there. You can look it up. Right? And I'll go to the other side. An RCA. Right? That was the company that distributed the stuff. This one is actually made in New York. Right? And what happens is it got as far as New Zealand. And then they pulled the plug on the album. And that is why we got this. And no one knew nothing about it. And it wasn't known to me for 5 years. And I'll tell you why I believe the reason is. Because Peter had left the group. And obviously, if they're going to put Peter's photo on it, they got to pay money.
Yeah.
So they pull the plug, I reckon, on the photos so they don't have to spend money. Copyright.
Right. Righto. Yeah. Those boys, they were not paid as they should have been. It wasn't right.
I something like $450 for the first season, then I went up to about $750 for the second season.
I know. I mean, how crazy is that? That's just, those numbers are so far off. You know.
Well, I've got to say, from the reading I've done, the first year of the Monkees pulled in $20 million in merchandise.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Did you collect anything else from the Monkees? I mean, honestly, had you known, you could have had everything.
I could have. But, you know, all during my Tiger Beat years, I felt it was unprofessional for me to ask for personal autographs. So I didn't get this autograph picture until Gary Strobel got it for me as he was working on this book, Reel to Reel. And I don't know where it stands now, but he got that from me. And I mean, at the time, I just didn't think it was professional. I was always asking them for their autograph for this picture or that picture or wherever we were going to reproduce it, but never for me. And of course, you know, I have regrets. I do it differently now and say, you know, I'd say, can I have this belt? Can I have this whatever? Just, you know, to have some memorabilia. But I didn't do that with anybody throughout the whole time, except, well, James Brown signed a picture for me when I interviewed him in 1965, but I didn't get a picture with him. And that's literally the only autograph I had.
You know, with these other artists, I don't want to get into that because I want to save it for another day. But you know what I really want to do, Anne? Now, I want you to tell me about the book, MEOW. That's the one where they can get it because everybody in the world needs to read this. You've got no idea. And I got to tell you, I love the title, MEOW, but with the stories you got to tell in there, you could have called that book Raw because there's so much to read in there that it's enthralling and you don't want to put the book down. So just quickly run through who's basically covered in there. Like even from the cover, there's that iconic photo of Peter with his hands around your neck.
Yep.
And Robert Plant is standing next door as they're walking, and Mickey's in the photo too. That's on the near me there. And you've also got Bobby Sherman. You've got Elvis there. You've got Mark Lindsay there from Paul Revere and the Raiders in a cave and outfit. And you've got
and then on the back we've got the Who eating my hair, and I can't remember what else, but yes, it was, you know, it was so remarkable how it came about. I was working at what would be my last job before I retired, and I worked with you know, young women. It was an orthodontic office. I was the patient coordinator, so I would help them in the process of getting braces. But the other women in the office were mostly, you know, late 20s. Some of them were early 20s. And I had been talking to one of the girls and she said, oh, bring in your pictures because all the pictures that you see were made from prints I had. I didn't have any of those negatives. So I had all the prints that were originally, they're 5x7, which we used in the magazine, or 8x10s. And they looked at the pictures and they kind of recognized the Monkees. I think some of them had seen the Monkees on, I think when they were on MTV or maybe when they were on Nickelodeon, but they knew who they were, but kind of vaguely, and they recognized Elvis, but not anybody else, to say the least. You know, I mean, 50 years had passed. So the interesting thing was, here they were, while I was showing them the pictures, they were Googling me on their phones, which I had never Googled my own name. And they said, oh my gosh, there's this article on you, and this girl says she wanted to be you when you were 12 years old, when she was 12 years old. And that was Ann Wicker, who turned out to be my editor on the book. And I mean, it just started a chain reaction. It was like that was my moment where I became aware that there were pages on me in Tiger Beat, from Tiger Beat. There were, I mean, I hadn't tuned into that. And it was such a revelation. And I thought, well, maybe I'll start a blog and I'll tell some of my stories, which is what I did. Well, my first blog was called I Used to Be Ann Moses. And And then we finally changed it just to AnnMoses.com. And that's where I started writing the stories. And I mean, I got such a wonderful reaction. And then I, got on Facebook. And after I had written a handful of those stories, it was like, well, would I be able to write a book? Because I never perceived myself as being able to write, the book I did. And we actually had to cut down the pages because it was just too long. But that started off, and that article that the girls found, I called that woman, Ann Wicker, and we got to talking. And, I said, would you be willing to, I need a backup. An editor is only, you have to be objective when you're an editor. And so I couldn't edit my own stuff. So I would write a chapter, send it to her, and 5 years later, we had the book.
And I've got to ask you where they can get the book. Please tell everyone how they can buy the book and where.
Well, at Amazon.com, and whether, it's AU or wherever you are, you can get autographed copies by sending by going to my website, AnnMoses.com, but it costs an outrageous amount of money to send to Australia. So anyone that would like to buy the book from Amazon and they would like a handwritten note from me, all they have to do is contact me at AnnMoses.com, and I will write a personal note to put in it, because, I don't think anybody should be sending $30 for a $15 book and $30 postage. That's crazy.
Well, Ann, I'm going to tell you, I'm getting a book autographed by you, and I don't care if we send it in a canoe, but it's going to come to Australia. Now, I got to ask you, we talked about the book, but now on the internet, where do they find you? I want to know, are you on Twitter? Where are you on Facebook? I want people to read your fascinating
I'm not on Twitter. I have an account, but it just, I am on, it's Facebook/Ann Moses, AnnMoses. And I have been, trying to post every weekday. Sometimes I don't make it. Other times, sometimes I'm just reproducing stories from Tiger Beat. But my followers really like that, because, oh, I remember this story. I remember doing this. It just helps to bring back those memories of when they were 8 years old, 12 years old, 15 years old. And that is so much fun. And then other times I will do original stories. There's our Monkey Spectacular.
Now, I'm going to tell you, that's from September 1967. So you can see I do my homework. And I got to say, these are the finest magazines ever to be written on the Monkees.
Oh.
All of the spectaculars. No, they are. And I've got a friend of mine who's got most of them. I'm trying to get him to sell it to me. You know what? I got to say, here's the pictures we're talking about, Ann.
Well, these are my Tiger Beats.
That's the one from the record I just showed you.
Yeah, these are my Tiger Beats. I had 12 issues bound, and this one's volume 7. But they, it's so fun. And the only problem with having them bound is when I try and reproduce them, they get lost in the center, the pictures. But it was really important to me to save every one. And even though I didn't save a lot of other things, those were really important to me.
Hey, Ann, do you reckon if I fill that out, hang on, do you reckon if I fill that out, I'll get my Monkees poster?
Oh, the guest star with the Monkees. I didn't remember that one.
That's an early photo of the Monkees.
Yes, Yeah, that's a promo photo that the studio sent out.
Unbelievable. And it also talks about the issues here. What issue you can buy.
Oh, yes. I mean, once Chuck realized that, Chuck was our publisher, Chuck Loffer.
Yeah.
And once he realized that the issues were just being thrown away, then he started just laying in a supply that were being printed, and then you could buy all the back issues. So if you came in a few months late, you'd be able to catch up on those. Oh, that's a good picture.
And that's the one actually from I think that's the one where they're playing the Mexicans in the TV show.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh,
And
there's so many funny costumes.
Mike's gonna love these photos. Fantastic. Look, I tell you, this is quality. Anybody going on the eBay or whatever, you got to buy the Tiger Beat Monkey Spectaculars, and it says Tiger Beat's official. I mean, these are beautiful.
Thank you.
And all I got to say is, we've covered the Monkees today. I can't thank you enough. If there's anything you want to say to your fans out there, because as I said, today was rock and roll royalty, and we won't tell them who we're doing next time.
I would love to do another show. I would like to say how much finding out that my work was so appreciated all those years ago. I mean, that was the ultimate revelation to me, that people, because I didn't realize at the time that they thought, oh, I want to be her when I grow up. I had no idea until I was in my 60s. And I have gotten so many incredible notes about my book, how they enjoyed it, and it took them back to just an easier, more carefree time when we were children. And so it just fills up my heart every time someone drops me a note and tells me that. And I'm just glad that all the work I did really meant something. So that's very rewarding.
Of course it did. And I bet you when you were at the desk there at Tiger Beat as an editor, I'm sure you must have got amazing letters, because it all came by letters. It didn't come by fax. It didn't come by, it came by the mail. And I mean, people must have been writing to you saying, I buy the magazine. I love Mike, or I love Mickey, or I love David Cassidy, or I love the Osmonds, or I love Bobby Sherman. You got to understand, you know, the great thing, Anne, is you lived the pop culture. Generations are discovering it now, but you actually lived it. This is the difference that people need to understand. Being in the moment, you don't know, but history is there.
Oh, we had no clue that it would ever be remembered. I mean, that's just the miracle of being connected to the entire world. But I think it's phenomenal, and it's, just in writing the book, I mean, just thinking back and trying to remember details. And then thank goodness, since I didn't journal during those times, but at least I wrote my parents' notes when I was on tour or over in England or whatever. And that was, that was good, that I could get the facts accurately, which was always important to me.
All I'm going to say is to everyone out there in the world, Anne Moses is part of pop culture. And I wish I was there, because I was only, 8 years old. I wish I was there in 66 when you started with them. And like, I'm on the other side of the world, and it's just like, I look at everything you've done and I'm just totally amazed. And I can tell you, as a fan, not only am I Plastic EP, but I'm a big fan of Anne Moses, because Anne Moses is intertwined in pop culture forever. And people will watch this interview in the next 10, 20 years, and you and I will watch it, and we'll have a laugh, and we'll know that this is documented. And just to tell you, we're going to surprise everybody. Episode 2 is going to be David Cassidy. So everybody that's into David Cassidy, don't miss it, because Anne's got some stories that no one knows. So Anne, from Plastic EP here in Melbourne, Australia, I'll get you to take us out by saying goodbye to everybody and your fans. It's been my ultimate pleasure today.
Well, it has been my pleasure as well. And thanks for tuning in. And I look forward to our next chat, Plastic.
Thank you, Anne. Goodbye, everyone. Bye.